Detachment from outcome functions as a processing shift, a shutdown of the real-time self-evaluation loop that competes with the skill itself. Clean execution usually follows the moment you stop caring what happens. This reveals a strictly mechanical relationship. Real-time outcome monitoring actively degrades execution fluidity. Ambitious, analytical professionals often spend their careers optimizing every variable. You likely focus on the landing of a presentation or the perfection of a line of code as the primary measure of your effort. This creates a fundamental misconception where you equate psychological detachment with a lack of professional standards. You assume that if you aren't stressing over the final product, you aren't truly trying. Mental focus functions as a hard allocation of system resources. To bypass the interference caused by anxiety, we have to map the specific cognitive glitch that occurs when you fixate on results, and then we must deploy a new architectural fix. Mastering the apathy paradox, caring about the craft while ignoring the immediate consequence, marks the mechanical difference between adequate preparation and elite execution. During high-stakes tasks, your cognitive bandwidth exists as a strictly finite system resource. Elite execution, whether coding, public speaking, or strategic planning, requires a dedicated 100% uninterrupted processing channel to function smoothly. High achievers often fall into the professional trap, where they treat internal anxiety as tangible proof of their high standards. This belief system categorizes low-stress states as dangerous, making you feel vulnerable or unprepared if you aren't actively worrying. Because you've linked your worth to the intensity of your struggle, releasing your grip on the outcome feels like a betrayal of the work. This creates a specific sense of guilt, as if the lack of stress is an admission that you've stopped trying. This guilt creates a loop. You re-engage with the anxiety simply to convince yourself that you are working hard enough. This raises the central tension. Why does this heightened motivation for a result so often cause the actual execution to fall apart? Professional anxiety functions structurally as a parasitic bandwidth drain. Clutching the outcome is a mechanical action that shifts your brain's processing priorities. This action forces the brain to boot up a self-evaluation loop, constantly pinging a single query: am I winning yet? This represents your baseline state. Before the evaluation loop starts, skilled execution flows as a clean, high-speed vector. Outcome attachment adds a concurrent background process that runs alongside that primary skill execution. This monitoring loop competes for the exact same cognitive channels required by the primary skill. The competition for resources results in system throttling and packet loss within the execution channel. This systemic packet loss manifests as a microstutter. You see it when you lose a train of thought mid-sentence, hesitate over a keyboard, or experience a physical flinch during a presentation. The brain is freezing the execution channel for a millisecond to process the data from the self-evaluation. The severity of this stutter increases in direct proportion to the bandwidth the evaluation loop demands. Because audience reception is an uncontrollable variable, the evaluation loop is essentially processing junk data while starving the main execution. A stumble in a high-competent professional indicates a system collision. The brain is attempting to execute the task and grade it simultaneously. Most professionals attempt to fix this performance degradation with interventions that only worsen the underlying glitch. Standard positive affirmations fail in this model. Phrases like, "I must win this," inject more pressure into the monitoring loop, increasing the throttle on your skills. The second failed fix is fake detachment, the act of pretending you don't care about the result. Pretending is an act of cognitive suppression. It is an active process that requires its own bandwidth. As the system error indicates, this suppression reads to the nervous system as active masked tension. Masked tension functions as yet another background process, further draining the energy you need in the arena. Fixing the self-evaluation loop requires a hard structural change to the processing load, rather than a psychological trick. The fix is role bifurcation, the strict temporal separation of your operational states. You must adhere to the rule that the doer and the judge never operate at the same time. State 1 is the executor. In the arena, the executor dedicates 100% of cognitive bandwidth exclusively to the next right move. Here, you relinquish the fantasy of controlling how people receive you. The data points of external anxiety are rejected to maintain focus.
State 2 is the analyst. The analyst operates entirely outside the execution window, relegated to post-event data review. Only here do you allow the evaluation of the result. Optimal performance relies on splitting your identity into these phases, ensuring the system only runs one primary application at a time. Implementation starts with recognizing the physical or mental onset of outcome chatter during your work. Use a deliberate pattern interrupt to crash that evaluation process the moment it starts to boot up. Before you begin, use this specific cue to force the shift. Your job is execution quality, not outcome insurance. Repeat this boundary whenever you feel the self-evaluation loop attempting to leech your bandwidth. If you take one thing from this, separate caring about your craft from needing this moment to redeem you. Execute the process at full attention. Let the result be data, not a verdict on your work.